Dobro večer, poštovanje, dragi gledatelji. Dobrodošli u još jedan 1 na 1. Moj večerasni gost stiže iz Rijeke, ali u stvari iz Brightona. I to sa tezom da su Brighton i Rijeka slični gradovi. On je Englez, on je Martin Mayhew. Izgovorite, molim vas, vaše ima sve strance, pitam, dobrodošli.
Hvala.
Da izgovore sami, vi ćete pričati naravno engleski, ali izgovorite sami sve ime da ja ne griješim u akcentu ili ne znam.
Mayhew.
Mayhew, u redu, gospodine Mayhew. Idemo u emisiju. Dakle, vi ste prevoditelj, prevodite Kamova, izuzetno zanimljivog našeg autora. Koliko je zapravo naša literatura poznata u Engleskoj? Vi prevodite poeziju i prozu i...
I would say that it's not well known. Only contemporary literature is known in England, as far as I know.
Koji autori? Jargović, Dubravka Ugrešić.
Yeah, and a couple from Rijeka that have been approached by one publisher based in London, and they have been published quite recently. And this is because they are contemporary authors. But for older, let's say older Croatian authors, I'm not aware of modern translations.
Vi dolazite u Hrvatsku prije 10 godina i namjeravate zapravo ostati jedan tjedan i napisati neku reportažu. Ali da ja ne pričam vaš život, kako je to izgledalo, koji su razlozi dolaska i koji su razlozi ostanka?
It was... I actually came here in the year 2000, almost 20 years ago to this day. As a journalist, I was writing for a...
Na današnji dan?
The end of February.
Oh, sjajno.
20 years ago.
Odlično.
As a journalist, I came for a very big magazine, lifestyle magazine, and I wrote a travel piece about Tres, Opatija, and I was here for Rijeka Carnival. And that made such a big impression on me that I decided to move here a few years later. And since that time, since 2010, I've been working as a full-time Croatian to English translator.
Prije toga ste dugi niz godina radili za i taj magazin i za zapravo izdavače u Engleskoj, koliko znam, na upravo tim putovanjima širom svijeta.
That's right. I did travel quite a lot of Europe as a writer, which was fantastic for me. That was a great experience. Because the magazine I was working for is a lifestyle and travel magazine. It's changed its name since then, Croatia was a place that I'd never really heard of. Rijeka, absolutely never heard of.
Kad je u redakciji urednik rekao ko će ići u Hrvatsku, jer nije bila navala.
Ne. There was the Croatian National Tourist Board contacted the editor, which is how the system works, and says that we would like to invite somebody from your magazine to come to Croatia for 7 days, and all the other travel writers were free, and so I put my hand up and said, yes, I'll go, but I wasn't really sure where I would be going. So when I first came, the Rijeka Carnival was just a fantastic experience, and that's the reason why I decided to...
Karneval u Rijeci?
Yeah.
I presudio da ostanete ovdje?
Yeah.
Pa dobro, ostali ste dani na razliku od karnevala u Hrvatskoj, tako da mogu kazati da niste pogrešili. Evo, sad smo saznali kako ste našli se u Rijeci, dakle na Kvarneru, jer ste spomenuli Cres i ostale destinacije. Ostali ste, dakle, jer vam se dopalo. Pa sad da pitam, što vam se dopada u tom splinu Rijeke, u toj atmosferi? Što vas je privuklo da je izaberete kao svoje prebivalište, kao mjesto, mislim, kojim ćete kreirati svoj životni prostor? I što najzanimljivije, vi nalazite u Rijeci, u tom splinu, ajmo krenuti od atmosfere, veliku sličnost sa Brightonom.
Yeah, when the opening ceremony of Rijeka 2020 was such a fantastic event, that it was like a puzzle. I suddenly joined parts of where I come from to the place where I live now. And then it was like the game Tetris, things started falling into place, and I started recognizing comparisons between the two cities. And being a translator is not an easy job, but it's interesting because I'm learning more about language and culture, and I'm working with lots of different clients in different fields of Croatian.
Dobro, ali vi niste samo prevoditelji, vi ste duboko upočeni u kulturu i kulturnu produkciju Hrvatske, vi ste i grafički dizajner, vi imate izuzetno intenzivne kontakte uopće sa ljudima koji danas slove to kao recentna kulturna proizvodnja ove zemlje, da to tako kažem, suhoparno. Pa i o tome ćemo govoriti, no vratimo se tim počecima. Što je u atmosferi grada?
Aha.
Što je u atmosferi grada? Ne sad ne mislite na kulturu. Okay. Ono što vam izgleda kao... vi ste rodom iz Brightona.
I was born in a smaller town to the west of Brighton, where I lived until I was 18, 19, when I moved to Brighton. And for me, moving to Brighton was the opening up of a whole new world. Brighton is a very different place. It's very culturally aware, very cosmopolitan, big gay community, lots of arts and music and theatre come from Brighton.
Turistička destinacija.
It's a very big tourist destination. It's not industrial, it doesn't have the industrial history like Rijeka does.
Ima glazbenu scenu.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It was outside of London, I would say that Brighton is the second biggest musical destination for bands and artists from all over the world. So in the past you would have seen the Beatles, you would have seen Jimi Hendrix, you would have seen Pink Floyd played their premiere of Dark Side of the Moon in Brighton. I only wish that I'd been there for that, but that was in 1972. I would only have been 5, so that was not... I couldn't have done that. But the atmosphere is very similar. People are very open. I see Rijeka as being quite liberal and very open to new ideas, new experiences, and the people are so very friendly. And everybody that I've met since I've been living there have been very open to me, very welcoming, and that's exactly the same atmosphere as in Brighton. In Brighton, it doesn't matter where you come from, what language you speak, or what religion you take. It's about who you are, not about what you stand for or what you think. It's a very good, nice community, lovely community, and I felt that now with the opening of Rijeka 2020, that Rijeka is making itself, giving itself more of a separate kind of identity, and because I work with so many.
Sad ste rekli taj identitet koji se oslanja na nekakvu odvojenost. To je svojstveno i Brightonu. I Brighton misli za sebe da je nešto posebno, drugačije od ostatka, da je na neki način navlastito svojstveno. Takvu samosvijest ima i Rijeka.
Yes, I think it does. I think there is very similar because, for instance, in Brighton has the only Green Party member of Parliament in London. No other place in the UK has a Green member of Parliament, a Green Party member, and people are very, very proud of that. And you have that feeling when you go to Brighton that it's something different. People go there for a holiday. People go there for the weekend to enjoy themselves, to have fun, to relax. There's so much to do, so much to see. And with Rijeka 2020, this year we'll hopefully kick that into action as well. This impetus will start, and hopefully more people will come to Rijeka because of the EPK.
Kako se vama osobno sviđalo i konceptualno kad razmišljate sad sa ove distance od par tjedana o otvorenju, dakle, samo kako vam se to sve skupa sviđalo? Mi smo vidjeli samo jedan segment na televiziji, operu, industrijale, ali Rijeka je zapravo cijela bila pozornica. To je ono što smo propustili vidjeti, da pravo duh grada, živost grada, vibrantnost. Kako vam se to svidjelo?
Well, it was going on all day. It started at 10 o'clock or earlier in the morning.
Sa nikšičkim pivom našeg zajedničkog prijatelja.
Yes, with the local beer.
Sa vrlo multikulturalnim gestom.
And there was something going on all day. There was something happening all day. There was something for children. There was something for the pensioners. There was something artistic going on. In every corner of the city, particularly in Starigrad, there were stages in every square, which was fantastic because you could walk from one part of the city. It's very easy to walk around Rijeka, it's very small. You could walk into one square and hear flamenco music, jazz music, and then walk around the corner into another square and you'd hear rock music, dance music, or a children's choir, which was just fantastic. I'd never seen that in Rijeka before. The Rijeka Carnival is fantastic. I love it, but the Epica, the opening on that day was something different. Everybody from Rijeka, as far as I know, was there.
Kad govorimo o ovim sličnostima, sad ćemo ići aspekt po aspekt. Vi ste napisali jedan vrlo instruktivan tekst koji nama u Hrvatskoj, građanima Hrvatske i recimo Hrvatima koji vole kazati tisućugodišnja hrvatska kultura i misle da se o njoj znaju, otkriva što o toj kulturi. Recimo u pogledu sličnosti Brightona i Rijeke kada je riječ o kazalištu i filmu. Vi iznosite nevjerovatne podatke za... Ja sam bio finski kritičar preko desetljeća, ali nisam znao da recimo 25. i tako 28. bila tako intenzivna djelatnost kada je riječ o kinooperaterstvu, da je film bio toliko popularan, da u jednom trenutku u jako kratkom vremenu prodano 750.000 ulaznica za filmske projekcije u Rijeci. Gdje ste našli to?
It's in a recent book. It's a recent book, monography that I've translated for Art Kino in Rijeka, which hopefully will be published soon, maybe next month. Which was written by. That's it. And this is this is what it looks like now. But in the past, it was in various different formations in slightly different buildings behind this building. And in the monography that I've translated, it gives the history of cinema in Rijeka. Now, there's some statistics in there that are very unbelievable.
Rijeka je imala tada zapravo više kinodvorana nego ostatak Hrvatske.
I believe that there were at least 45 cinema screens or places to see films, indoors or outdoors, in the open air, in Rijeka in the
45, kada? Koje godine?
Around the early 1950s, when cinema was at its peak in let's say Croatia. In Brighton, that peak had already dropped because of the advent of television. But in the statistics that I've translated says that there were 700, as you said, 750,000 cinema tickets sold in Rijeka in the first 6 months of the year 1950.
Nevjerojatno. Prvih pola godine.
Yeah. So if you calculate per day, that's nearly 4,000 people every day went to see a film.
A koji je repertoar bio, jeste pogledali?
There is a long list of films that were shown because the writer went into the archives and discovered all the novi lists day by day. And there were films from all of Europe, France, Czech Republic, Britain, and a wider field from the Soviet Union, obviously, and from America. And the range of films is fascinating.
Vidite, komunisti su bili jako pametni. Čak i u tim danima, 48. je bila tu samo 2 godine prije, u Rijeci, dakle na Kvarneru, i isto tako u Puli su se redovito puštali filmovi koji su bili na repertoaru u Italiji i tako dalje. Dakle, vi ste imali tamo recentnu produkciju u kinima. To je, eto, ipak svjedočanstvo kako su zgodimice na nekim mjestima bili pametni komunisti. Film i kazalište. Kazalište nismo spomenuli. Kazališnu scenu isto tako nalazite sličnom.
Kazalište, yes, there is a comparison also because the oldest theatre in Brighton was built at the same time, around the same time as Ivan Zajc's theatre in Rijeka, and obviously the theatre in Brighton doesn't have such a grand structure as the one in Rijeka, but they do share the same history, and they also have similar productions from all over Europe. And I've been to the...
Znači, mi se nemamo čega šta sramiti u Hrvatskoj. Mi smo bili, kako da na svjetsko-povijesnoj razini. U Rijeci se zbivalo isto ono što se zbiva u Brightonu tih godina. Čak možda i u reprezentativnijem ambijentu.
Well, obviously the architecture is much better, but each city has gone through different, let's say, governance through the centuries, and obviously the Rijeka.
Pa mi volimo napraviti zgrade, makar recimo kasnije nemali prometa, napravimo. Ali grafiti murali Rijeke i Brightona i dalje vas podsjećaju na sljedeću sličnost.
Yeah, they are. I've seen every time I go back to Brighton, I see more and more graffiti. Tasteful, professional artists who are commissioned to paint on buildings, and in Brighton there is always something new, and it covers local people. It covers local musicians, local artists. Figures from Brighton's history who were important in the making of the city. And also in Rijeka I've seen that this is happening too. And for EPK, for Rijeka 2020, some famous artists have been commissioned to also paint murals during the year, which I hope will brighten up the city, because I think that murals can add some attraction to a city, and they can even become icons, let's say, and landmarks. People can say, oh, if you go to this particular mural and then turn left, you'll see this little tiny bar in the cellar. That's the place to go for a late night drink or something like that. And in Brighton, it's full of, especially in the centre, it's full of murals. There's one very famous near the train station, which is on the side of a very large pub, and it has all deceased rock stars. So you've got Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, John Lennon, and every time I go back there, unfortunately, they have to add more figures, because
Evo, drugi put spominjete i glazbu i glazbenike, pa tematiziramo i to. Naš izabrani i sada i aktualni predsjednik sam je spomenuo parafe. Vi spominjete neke prijašnje dečke, ali kad uzmemo tu punk i post-punk scenu, ja sam generacija koja je točno uletila u pucanj, dakle, ona ciljna skupina, dakle, New Wave-a. I ovdje, ali prije, dakle, u Britaniji nas je jako formiralo ovdje u Hrvatskoj Joy Division, Susie and the Bands, Cure, Chrome, ne znam, sad da ne napravim, da ne kradim vrijeme. Uglavnom, ono što vas želim pitati je kako komparirate glazbene scene Brightona i Rijeke, jer Rijeka je odigrala u povijesti hrvatske glazbe i kad je riječ o džezu, što manje ljudi spominje, ali kada je riječ o o roku, rock'n'rollu i inim, dakle, sad inačicama, veliku ulogu.
Yeah, I believe I've even met some of these original rock stars and the new wave punk musicians in Rijeka, and they tell me stories about how they heard the music, how they experienced music coming from Britain, let's say, the punk movement, etc., and how that inspired them to play the music. So there is a comparison, because Brighton has always had its very own tight musician and freedom of liberal kind of music. There's no particular kind of genre of music played in Brighton. You can go to one bar and listen to ethno music. You can go to another bar and hear jazz. You can go and hear punk, not so much these days, but a wide scope of music. And it's the same in Rijeka. Rijeka, you can go into a different bar and listen to different kinds of music. And I've met people who play the music, and I have to say they're better than a lot of musicians that I've heard in Brighton. I played in a band in the mid-90s in Brighton, and we did it for fun. We weren't hoping to be famous or anything.
Razgovarajući sa tim glazbenicima, jeste li shvatili da je isti tip nekakvog socijalnog bunta, da su isti motivi posrijedi ovdje i u Britaniji toga doba?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. To je zanimljivo.
Yeah. Paraf and a couple of other bands who were at the forefront of that movement. As far as I understand, in the whole of Croatia, Yugoslavia, Rijeka was a hub of music, along with Pula. Pula was also a big... No?
Ljubljana, Zagreb, Beograd.
Yeah.
Ali Rijeka je imala samosvojnu scenu, vrlo izrazito.
And Brighton also had its own musical scene. It also had its own record labels who published the vinyl. You know, you could find maybe still these days you can find 7-inch singles. There was only 100 copies ever made, and they're gold dust. You can't find these anywhere.
Spominjali ste mi kad smo razgovarali prije emisije da Rijeka i Brighton i nadalje, da radimo te paralele, imaju sličnu socijalnu osjetljivost, ali i ekosvijest.
Yeah.
U čemu se to ogleda?
Well, there's a comparison there because Brighton has always been very eco-friendly, very conscious of waste, and each household has its own separate bins for separating out different kinds of waste. Rijeka now is coming up to speed with that kind of philosophy mentality, which is fantastic because before, maybe 10 years ago, there weren't these now every neighbourhood in Rijeka has separate bins, containers for separating out the waste, 3 or 4 for different kinds of waste. And the city of Rijeka every few months distributes brochures and leaflets about how to separate your waste. In Brighton, it's understood. This is done as it's almost become law. I've heard that some people can receive some kind of fine if they don't separate their waste properly, because every bin, every container has the house number or the flat number written on the container, so they know when somebody doesn't follow the system. In Rijeka, still people were still throwing their waste into the same container. And it's...
Ova prva, dakle, ovoga usporedba socijalne osjetljivosti.
Yes, very, very socially aware because it's a very open city. I feel that Rijeka is a very open city.
U kom smislu? To se stalno govori. Mi smo Luka, mi smo otvoren grad. U kom smislu? Da čujem jednog stranca. U kom smislu je Rijeka otvoren grad? Možda mi to u Hrvatskoj ne primjećujemo. Možda svi mislimo da smo otvoreni, ne znam, u Zagrebu mi rado primamo Zagorce, Dalmatince, onda tu iz Markuševca znaju ljudi doći.
Well, I have experienced different opinions about different parts of Croatia. I know that Zagreb looks down a bit at Rijeka, is like looks down their nose and go, oh yeah. And maybe Rijeka people...
Nema, dobro, to su naše male čarke.
Yeah, okay, I'm šalim se.
Volimo mi Rijeku. Rijeka danas, ozbiljno sad, kako ja vozim na 50 minuta od Zagreba, prije dođete do Rijeke, dakle, na more i ručate nego što dođete s kraja na kraj Zagreba. Ali to nije važno sada. Hoću kazati, ne postoje zapravo ti animoziteti, to su ovako lokalne čarke. Ali kako vama to izgleda kao ipak Englezu, koji je naučio, mislim, koliko London ima preko 350 nacionalnosti u ovom trenutku. Dakle, vama je to nešto najnormalnije, da je to Babilon, da ljudi različitih kultura, rasa, iz cijelog svijeta, možda i vanzemaljaca ga vršljaju, ali ovdje je to malo drugačije. Sad, kako je vama ta otvorenost Rijeke prezentna, na koji način se ona otkriva?
Well, as far as I know, there are at least 20 to 50 minorities in Rijeka. They also have their own little groups, their own little societies, but it seems that they've integrated into the community, into society, which is fantastic because obviously that's how things should be. And my opinion about Rijeka has changed, I have to say, over the years since I've been there, because when I first came there, it seemed to me to be quite closed and quite isolated. But with the advent of more tourism coming and more people, unfortunately, there's a big exodus from Rijeka. People are leaving the city, which is a shame, to go to Ireland and Germany, etc.
Da, u 20 godina oko 40.000 je za Riječana manje.
Yeah, this is shocking. This is.
Ali tako je to svugdje u Europi, nije to, znate, zbog ovog ili onog načina života. Ljudi cirkuliraju. Znači, ćete jako puno Parižana u Berlinu i obratno. Berlinaca u Štokholmu.
It can be a positive thing because you are sharing culture and your language is spreading and arts, etc., are going outwards. But if the people are leaving because they feel no hope or they have no optimism about staying in this country or staying in Rijeka, then that is negative.
Osjećate li vi tu beznadnost? Ili mislite da smo mi Hrvati depresivci?
No, I don't think so. I think it's. I think this could be. I think it could be some kind of a hangover from a hangover from previous periods. Mm-hmm. This is something that Croats they're not. They feel timid, belittled by other cultures. They feel kind of suppressed or. This is my own personal opinion.
Ali naš zajednički prijatelj, kad smo kod toga, kaže da je Hrvatska u posjedu svojevrsnog barometra koji se diže da bi se strmoglavio prema zadanoj negativnosti. To je to što rađa beznađe. Zašto smo mi takovi, po vašem mišljenju?
Well, because I think everybody lives in hope of a better future. Everybody lives in hope of things being better. I made this analogy a few years ago where Croatia is like a barometer that is rising, and it almost gets to a point where everything is great, everybody's happy, the system works, but then something happens and it drops down again, and then this, as your previous guest Paul Bradbury said, it drops to this default negativity. I've seen this keep rising since I've been here. But then it keeps dropping at the same rate. And it's a shame because there's so much positivity, there's so much opportunity here. As far as I understand, Croatia has everything it needs. I don't know if it's mentality or this negativity is inbred or is passed down from other generations. The past was so much better, now things are worse. This country's gone through so many different political systems, structures, regimes is quite a strong word. In English language, it's a very strong word to say regime, and it's used probably not correctly when it refers to some. It's used in a negative way, I believe, but I wouldn't say that Croatia has gone through any regimes.
Ne, hoću kazati, ovi krajevi su prošli kroz, čujte, i mi imamo tu konotaciju, dolazi D'Annunzio i ekipa, mislim da 4 godine nije bilo zapravo izbora, fašisti su snažno, dakle, prisutni u gradu, tako dalje, ta fašizam je morao biti demontiran uz 3000, dakle, poginulih. Jasno da govorimo o režimu, ali neću vas kao stranca maltretirati sa našim nasljeđem komunizma i fašizma, nego nešto veselije, gej scena.
Gay scene.
Kažete da je Rijeka krajnje gay-friendly poput Brightona.
Brighton is a very gay-friendly city. It's probably, I think, a few years, maybe it was the gayest capital in Europe, the gay capital of Europe at some point, maybe 5-10 years ago. And this is it's a very good example. This is the Brighton Pride Festival.
Šareno, dobro.
Every year, up to 500,000 people come to this festival, which lasts 3 or 4 days. And there is a huge concert.
Mogu doći simpatizeri?
I've been to a couple of them, and it's completely open. There's no restrictions. Obviously,
možete samo gledati, dakle.
Obviously, if it's not your thing, then don't go, because you won't enjoy it. But everybody, the whole city opens up. There are other festivals. There's the very famous Brighton Festival, which has been running for decades.
Kad usporedite tu situaciju sada sa Rijekom, i Rijeka je imala neke prve iskorake u Hrvatskoj. Dakle, lezbijska scena je također probijala led u Hrvatskoj, tako da imamo i mi slične fenomene s kojima se može čovjek ponositi u ovom smislu.
Yeah. There is. The organization in Rijeka is Lori, and it's the first lesbian organization in the country. And I think that's great. It's fantastic because they stand up for LGBT rights. In Brighton, there's a dozen associations doing the similar thing, because there will always be prejudice everywhere in the world. But as in the gay scene in Rijeka, I don't think there has been any out need for a gay scene. As far as I know, there aren't any openly gay men. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But
imate li dojam da netko ko je gej ima ikakvih problema u Rijeci? Ili su ljudi naprosto gay friendly?
No. I don't think so. I've walked down Corso in Rijeka and seen gay men walking hand in hand.
Okay.
And nobody has blinked an eye. Corso is as you know, is quite a wide pedestrian street, and you can watch everything
Lijepo začuti. Recite mi, što vi mislite, zašto su mediji u Hrvatskoj iznenađeni time kada se piše nešto pozitivno, eto, o Rijeci ili Hrvatskoj? Mi kao da smo razočarani. Zašto oni ne uočavaju te naše tragične razmirice, naše borbe po šumama i gorama, naše partizane i ustaše, kad ih imamo tako lijepe i pitoreskne?
Well, this is something that I've never understood. It's either the Croatian media reacts overwhelmingly as being astonished at why would a foreign media write something good about us? Why would there be such a positive reaction to the country? Or they're completely scathing towards the foreign media, saying they don't understand us, they don't understand our history, they don't appreciate what we've been through, what we've experienced. Because for let's say British people, Croatia is purely a tourist destination, as was Yugoslavia. So you would have to be in a different kind of journalistic field to write something that isn't about journalism about Croatia. You would have to be very in depth with the subject. But for instance, The Guardian will only write positive things about Croatia because they're working in a touristic kind of atmosphere. So when The Guardian writes something very positive about, they wrote a very good piece about Rijeka, the opening of Rijeka 2020, and on social media, the reaction on social media by Croats were, wow, they really think that this is something great, and they don't believe it. And I always find that reaction to be it always surprises me. And again, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know why that happens.
Vrlo jednostavno, ja ću objasniti kao građanin Hrvatske. Guardian je krajnje lijevo, oni su prepoznali svoje ljevičare u Rijeci. Mi znamo da je to sve skupa jugo, joga i ta zvijezda i znamo otkud to dolazi. I zna se, sve nam je jasno. Ali, evo kako sam objasnio, kraće nisam mogao. Sad kad se vratite u Rijeku, molim vas objasnite tamo. Isto, šalim se, ali u svaku šali puno istine. Čujte, pogotovo ovo da se samo podcjenjujemo i da mislimo da su naše crveno-crne dijalektike ruleta ovog povijesnog puno važnije od tog turizma koje spominjete i naše izloženo svijetu. Ali kad smo kod toga, turizam stalno računa na naturu, na prirodne ljepote, ono što smo zatekli. Ali vi sad stalno govorite o kulturi. Možemo li mi u Hrvatskoj, recimo Rijeka, ponuditi jedan trajan i mimo ove godine Evropske predstavnice kulture, trajan izazov Evropi da navraća u Hrvatsku, u Rijeku, u naše krajeve, jer mi imamo i kulturni proizvod. Mi nismo dakle samo po prirodi snažni momci za igre s loptom ni jako zgodne djevojke koje će tu tako široka srca dočekati turiste na prekrasnim, nedirnutim, intaktnim plažama, jer je to tako Mediteran kakav je bio izvorno, nego imamo li mi nešto što smo posredovali svojim radom, znanjem, pameću i tako dalje za ponuditi svijetu?
Yes. Absolutely. There is so much more still to discover about this country for tourism, for foreigners. There is so much culture still to be uncovered, and history and literature. And I work with museums. I work with agencies, with management, cultural heritage management companies, who are recovering, rejuvenating, reviving some of these, the natural treasures, the hidden treasures, the hidden archaeology, architecture, history, which has been lost over the decades, which has been lost and forgotten. So I feel like I'm adding something to this because I work as a translator. And there are many things that this country can be proud of, and many things that will outlive the presidency and the Rijeka's 2020 Capital of Culture.
Znači, vi mislite da je kulturna produkcija Hrvatske danas, a upoznati se, rekoh, i sa likovnošću i sa našom živom, dakle, pisanom riječju, poezijom, prozom, ali i sa onim što čini povijest, kamova, prevoditelj osobno. Vi mislite da bismo se mogli afirmirati, eto, bez ikakvog hemunga, bez ikakvih, dakle, samoponižavanja ili samopodcjenjivanja u Europi danas i time?
Yes, yeah. I think maybe it's a process. Maybe it's a process that the country is going through to be more positive, to pick itself up, to say, okay, we lived through all of this. This is our past. This is we can't change history. These are the facts. These are the facts. This is it. But that's not what we're going to be from now on, or that's not what we are now. And so when politicians or when local government regurgitate, bring up old political wounds, let's say, they open up these wounds and say, oh, this happened in 1940, blah, 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 then it just perpetuates the negativity, and people, and specifically the older generations, will always shake their hands and go, oh, it wasn't like that back in our day. We could be like this now, or we should be like this now. But I feel that the younger generations of Croats are getting over this, progression from this feeling. There are a lot of things that can be better and can be improved, I think.
Evo, došli smo do kraja, imamo možda minutu za jedno važno pitanje koje bi vjerojatno tražilo puno više vremena, ali kratak odgovor. Britanija nije samo kultura, nego civilizacija. Ona je na sve nas utjecala oduvijek i na različite načine. Na moju generaciju glazbom, na nekog drugoga, bilo koji roman koji dobije Bookera, ovdje se odmah čita i tako dalje, tako dalje. Šta mislite da će se zbivati nakon Brexita? Hoće li to uopće imati ikakvog utjecaja na taj kulturni impakt, kulturni utjecaj Britanije na Europu?
That's a very interesting and complicated question. I think that over the period of this year, things will become much clearer. But the deadline, the no-deal deadline threat, is at the beginning of next year. And I am very anti-Brexit. I don't really like talking about politics because that's my own personal opinion. But I think it was a bad idea, and I think it will have knock-on effects with the cultural, let's say, the cultural things coming out of Britain. Particularly in the things that I enjoy, which is music, and the bands coming from England and travelling to the country. And recently, this week, the government have announced that musicians coming from the EU will have to have a visa to work in the UK, which is a disaster.
Hvala vam lijepo što ste bili moj gost. Vrlo, vrlo zanimljiv, dakle, pogled evo na nas same iz perspektive jednog Britanca koji je postao i Riječanin ili filman, kako god bilo. Hvala, dragi gledatelji, što ste bili sa nama još jednom. Gledajte nas naravno i sljedeći puta, a i sljedeći puta ćemo imati jednu gošću izvana, iz Austrije, no do tada doviđenja, laku noć.